Alrighty, hello and welcome again. This is the second part of a two-part video that ended up being a two-part video because I ended up talking more about the cards than I thought I would. Uh, as I mentioned on the previous one, I fell behind a little bit on the spoilers, on the M21 spoilers due to life. But I'm back at it, and to catch up, I am doing 50 cards today, 50 cards tomorrow, I think. My name is Gon, short for Gonzalo, as it reads up there. You can find me on Twitch as well, which I'll be posting down there. And because I'm assuming that you're just coming in from the previous video, I will just remind you quickly that my comments on the cards are mostly focused on a limited environment. So without further ado, let's move on to the cards themselves. First off, we have Daybreaker Charger. For 1 and a white, it's a 3/1 creature unicorn at common, which reads when Daybreaker Charger enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Obviously, works better if you have anything with evasion on the board, but you know it might still make a swing worthwhile if the opponent has anything that you might want to get rid of, or you know if the opponent has a poor presence on the board. Even if this drops in at turn 2, the opponent might not really have anything yet, and you might have dropped a 1/1 first, then it swings for 3. So what's not to like, right? It's at common as a 3/1. It's not. I mean, it might trade for some attackers, but it's not so interesting on its own. But white has a decent capability for adding counters, so that might make it better. Suddenly you just need one counter to make this one trade for with a 4/4. You just need two counters to make it trade with a 5 toughness creature, and so on. So that would definitely add to its value. Next up, we have Dub for 2 and a white. You get an enchantment aura at common, which reads enchant creature. An enchanted creature gets +2/+2, has first strike, and is a knight in addition to its other types. It deals combat damage before creatures without. Okay, yes, that's just a reminder text for first strike. I mean, it's all right. Auras in general are not very played in limited because you want your non-creatures to be removal most of the time, and because since you want removal, that's also what your opponent wants. And if you drop this on another creature and they remove it, they're 2-for-1ing you, so that never feels good. But +2/+2 and first strike is pretty decent. The fact that it's a knight probably doesn't really do anything in limited as far as I have seen. But yeah, it's one of those cards that you might just pick late. That once the pack has been drained of actually playable cards, and if it's in your color, you could do worse. Probably not gonna see a lot of play though. Feat of Resistance for 1 and a white. You have an instant at common that puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and it gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So that's a pretty neat battle trick at common. It can work as removal. Yeah, not much else to say. Definitely, it's something that you would pick over Dub. Both being at common, I don't think you'll see them on the same pack often. But yeah, decent battle trick. It can also protect your creature from removal, so that makes it slightly better as it gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Next up, we have Gale Swooper. For 3 and white, you get a 3/2 creature griffin at common with flying. When Gale Swooper, I want to say whale. When Gale Swooper enters the battlefield. Target creature gains flying until end of turn. That's a pretty nice, desirable effect in most decks, and on its own, it's swinging in the air for 3. So yeah, definitely an okay, playable, decent body with flying. Next we have Legion's Judgment. For 2 and a white, it's a sorcery at common, which reads destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. That last bit with power 4 or greater usually is something that I don't really like. It's kind of like Blade Banish, I guess. But in limited, I guess I'll have to see exactly how the power distribution is on the creatures. But there's often the creature that's really bothering you tends to be power 4 or greater anyway. So you might not pick it over other removal, but if you're on white, this will probably will back to your draft, and it's decent removal for sure. Makeshift Battalion. Oh, and also if you're playing best of 3, that's probably makes it a bit better because you can sideboard it and then bring it in or not according to the opponent's setup. If the opponent is playing, uh, Gruul, power 4 or greater matters, then it becomes a lot better than if you're playing, Azorius Flyers, where most creatures are going to be 3 and under. Makeshift Battalion is a 2/1, 2 and a white, 3/2 creature human soldier at common, which reads whenever Makeshift Battalion and at least 2 other creatures attack, you put a +1/+1 counter on Makeshift Battalion. It's another. It's even more support for white going wide, which so far I've seen a lot of support for. Can't really remember the rarity distribution, but there's definitely a lot of support for white going wide. I hope that there are interesting ways to deal with that because it's go wide and add counters, not pump your team until end of turn. There's ways to add counters, so that changes the mechanics. Usually, if white is going wide, you have to wait for that. The swing usually comes with certain timing, and you can sort of work around it and try to prevent lethal or prevent catastrophic damage from their swing because they're going to be pumping the whole team for one turn and go. But on Core 2021, white has a lot of ways to add counters to creatures while at the same time going wide. Next we have Secure the Scene. For 4 and white, it's a sorcery at common which reads exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Again, what did I just say? This is removal, unconditional removal. Yes, it costs 5 mana, but you're also getting another body on the ground, which you probably want because you're probably going wide. Next we have Staunch Shieldmate for white. It's a 1/3 creature dwarf soldier at common. Just that. It's honestly pretty good. It's tokens, and if you add a couple of counters, it becomes a pretty decent big booty for just one white. Definitely gonna be rating this one pretty good. It's a solid playable for white. Next we have Swift Response for 1 and white. It's an instant at common, which reads destroy tapped creature. It's an instant. So what's usually the problem when you're going wide? Your creatures aren't strong enough. And what happens when your creatures aren't strong enough? Opponent is swinging. Well, now you can remove him for 2 mana at common at instant speed. It's not like a Swallow Hole, which you did that and added a counter, but and I think it was only 1 mana, but it was sorcery speed, so you had to take the damage or jump before being able to use it. This is instant speed, so as soon as they go sideways, they die. Warden Battlements for 2 and a white. It's a 0/3 creature wall at common with Defender. And it reads attacking creatures you control get +1/+0. So again, a way to pump your team. Next we have Cancel for 1 blue and blue. It's an instant at common which counters target spell unconditionally. So yeah, it's kind of like the, what was it? Didn't say please, but without the graveyard side effect, which honestly in Core 2021 might be good because I think there's a lot of graveyard shenanigans. The best thing about the graveyard, the mill your opponent for 4 with didn't say please, in at least for me, I have a sort of janky, annoying blue deck that I sometimes play that uses the Brineborn, Cutthroat, and a whole bunch of counter spells, and the what was the name of it? The fairy, the mythic rare fairy that you pay 2 and bounce, and then it comes into the battlefield for 3, and it's a 3/1 flyer. And it's a deck where you're basically dropping those down at the end step and countering opponent's stuff during their turn so that you're pumping your creatures and getting bigger and swinging through, and you're running out of cards. So Into the Story is a draw 4 for 7, I believe, but if the opponent has 7 cards in their graveyard, you can cast it for 4. So since you're usually countering stuff with Thought Collapse, and Didn't Say Please, which are 1 and 2 blue, that's why the aggression is coming from. They're milling the opponent every time that you're countering stuff, and then whenever you're almost out of cards and you have Into the Story into your hand, you're probably going to cast it for 4, which is great. So, but in this case, I think that the fact that it doesn't have mill your opponent for 4 is actually a plus, because there are quite a few graveyard shenanigans that I have seen, at least on black. It seems to be a strong game for black. Next up, we have Capture Sphere for 3 and blue. It's an enchantment aura, and it has flash. You enchant creature. When Capture Sphere enters the battlefield, you tap that enchanted creature, and it doesn't untap until its controller untap step. We've all played it. We all love it. It's a pretty decent removal, soft removal for blue. Next up, we have Frost Breath for 2 and a blue. It's an instant at common, which reads tap up to 2 target creatures, and those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So this is a pretty decent finisher-ish for blue, as you can tap 2 creatures during the opponent's end step, and that removes 2 blockers for you to swing in, and those 2 blockers will be out of play for the next turn as well. Defensively, it also works. If you're kind of behind on the board, you can prevent some serious damage with this one. So yeah, I like it. It's not I get it's soft removal, not hard removal, but it's pretty decent. I definitely see this, at least one of these on your deck when you're playing blue. Definitely useful. Next, we have King Glidemaster. For 1 and a blue, you get a 2/1 creature human soldier at common, which reads pay 2 and blue, and target creature gains flying until end of turn. Seems a bit expensive. Blue creatures are not famous for having a lot of power, but we do have a few whales. Well, at least the one whale and a few creatures on this set that are at the 5+ CMC slot that have decent power. This can give them a little bit of evasion. And I only wish it had flying itself. The fact that it doesn't have flying itself makes a 2-1 for 2 with an interesting mana sink a little bit less interesting. I mean, at least you can activate it multiple times because it doesn't require you to tap it, and you can still chump with it. You know, you can activate it and chump with it. But yeah, I'm not really excited about it. Blue and white seem to be having a lot of support for flying, which makes me think this is just this does not really make sense for that kind of archetype because it itself does not have flying, and probably the other stuff that you have already have it. I don't know. Seems like it's a low interest card, but I feel like I might be missing something. I mean, having a mana sink helps, and giving evasion to other creatures helps. Blue green, I've talked about blue green a few times, so maybe blue green is a better home for this one. Being able to give flying to your green creatures is definitely a lot more interesting. Probably a card that will make a lot more sense after pack 2 when you have sort of an idea of where you're going. Next up we have Opt. Again, we all know it, we will use it. It's alright. In Limited, I think it's probably a bit better than in Constructed. Um, especially if you are in an archetype that cares about card draw. It helps you go through your deck a little bit faster and can activate any of those card draw payoffs. Next we have Tome Anima. For 3 and a blue, you get a 3/3 creature spirit at common, which reads Tome Anima can't be blocked as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. Again, there is support for drawing more cards per turn. So if you opt, you're giving this one can't be blocked. So that's pretty decent. Makes opt a little bit better than it would be otherwise. It makes card draw better than it usually is, which already is pretty good in Limited anyway. Next we have Rookie Mistake. For blue, it's an instant at common, which reads until end of turn, target creature gets +0/+2, and another target creature gets -2/-0. So yeah, a cute battle trick on blue for 1 mana. I guess it's alright. Basically, if it only works if your creature already has enough power to destroy their creature, and it just keeps your creature safe if they were to trade. Next up, we have Roaming Ghostlight. For 3 blue and blue, it's a 3/2 creature spirit at common. I remember now that we were keeping an eye out for spirits. Well, here's one at common. Although it's 5 mana to cast, it has flying, and when Roaming Ghostlight enters the battlefield, you return up to 1 target non-spirit creature to its owner's hand. It can be opponent's or yours. So yeah, I mean, it's an expensive 3/2 flyer that is better if you have spirit synergies. At least it allows you to bounce something, which maybe no, but you are paying 5 mana to cast it. So I was thinking, yeah, you can bounce something, and then when opponent tries to cast it, you can probably now counter it, but probably not because you probably don't have any mana left open after casting this one. So yeah, not very interesting. Maybe interesting with the spirit synergies. I can't really remember what they were. I just mentioned it on the previous video, but I can't remember what it was. Next we have Read the Tides for 5 and blue. It's a sorcery at uncommon, I mean at common. And you can choose one. Either draw 3 cards or return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hands. So bounce 2 or draw 3 for 6. Feels pricey. It's at common, so you're probably gonna see it a lot. You like you might have one of these go into your deck just because it goes there. If you have payoffs for drawing cards, then it becomes a little bit better. Otherwise, returning up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. If you have ETB creatures, it becomes better. If not, then it's a draw 3 for 6, which is not nice, but it is what it is, and it's at common, so you're probably going to see a lot. Next, we have Alchemist's Gift for black. Now, would it be unplayable? I'm not sure. I don't think it would be unplayable. I just don't think it'll make a lot of decks. I think it's poor filler. Alchemist's Gift. For black, you get an instant at common, which reads target creature gets +1/+1, gains your choice of Death Touch or Lifelink until the end of turn. So a neat way to give Death Touch to a creature or Lifelink and pump it a bit. For 1 mana, cute battle trick for 1 mana, kind of like the Rookie Mistake. I wouldn't think that my deck sucks because I had to include this card, but I would be sad that I didn't have anything better. I guess that's my way of describing this one. Next up, we have Wishcoin Crab. Wait, let me just got this one and I'm just getting used to it. You might have noticed that it's different than from the previous videos, but anyway. Wishcoin Crab for 3 and a blue, you get a 2/5 creature crab. So at common, it's the usual big butt crab in blue. Is it playable? Yeah, I mean, as blue, usually you wanna have a decent blocker. This at least has 2 powers, so it makes it slightly better. If you are on blue and green, where usually card draw becomes counters, from what I remember, you can give a counter to this guy if you don't have anything better to, but you probably do. So yeah, in general, you will be putting it in as filler, as a decent blocker. I don't think we have seen any cards that assigns toughness as combat damage on the set. Next we have Wall of Runes, another old friend. For blue, it's a creature, wall at common with defender, and when it ETBs, you scry 1. It's alright. I mean, it's definitely much better than this. It'll fill the exact same purpose most of the time. Yeah, this can block a 4-powered creature and live. This one can't, but this drops for 1 mana and lets you scry. So Anyway, moving on. Vodalian Arcanist is a 1 and a blue 1/3 creature merfolk wizard at common that you can tap for a colorless mana, but you can only spend that mana to cast an instant or sorcery spell. So it's kind of a non-creature spells matter filler because I think there's better cards within that archetype. But again, on the limited environment, you might end up having to fill in with other cards. This one works better than many other cards as filler, and probably somebody that's not drafting a what's it called, a non-creatures spells archetype is not gonna be very interested in this one. Sure, it can make your removal 1 mana cheaper. Sure, it's a 1/3, so it can successfully block 1 and 2 power attackers. But yeah, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's decent in most blue decks as an okay 2-slot creature, but I don't think so. Next we have Deathbloom Thalid. I think this was on the previous rotation. I think I've bumped into it in a historic match at least at some point. For 2 and a black, you get a 3/2 creature fungus at common, which reads when Deathbloom Thalid dies, you create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. I mean, great for sack archetypes, I guess, because for 3 mana you get first a 3/2 that can trade for something with 3 toughness, and then a 1/1 that it's most often only good if you can sack it for value, right? Otherwise, it's just a chump blocker, which, it's okay, but not super impressive. And lastly, for today, we have the Crypt Lurker for 3 and a black. It's a 3/4 creature horror at common, which reads when Crypt Lurker enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature or discard a creature card, and if you do, you draw a card. Yeah, you see, I'd be very happy to sack that 1/1 green sapperling to draw a card. Um, yeah, it's all right. It's a 3/4, which makes it slightly more resilient, although slightly less offensive. And it's only got an ETB effect, but it might draw your card. Worst case scenario, you discard something that you discard a land and draw probably some fuel. So yeah, definitely a playable. And that wraps it up for today. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the extended, well, not really extended. Sorry for the absence for the last few days and the delay on these spoilers. But now they're there. Hope you enjoy them. Let me know what you think about these couple of batches. Any cards that you think I may have grossly under or overestimated, cards that you're excited about in maybe other formats, or simply, creatures that, or I mean, cards that you might have enjoyed. Let me know on the comments. Also, down on the description, you will find the link to my Twitch channel. I go by Gone to the Arcade. And lastly, again, my name is Gon, as you can read up there, short for Gonzalo. I hope you enjoyed this, at least found it entertaining. Informative might be a bit of an overestimation, but entertaining at least. I will move on to the informative once the whole set's out and I get a good look at it and try to get a feel of what the set is like, and hopefully I will try to bring some useful information on that front. But for now, we are in spoiler season still, and this is for fun, right? Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is wherever you are watching this from. That just didn't sound anything coherent at all, so I think that means that my gas is running out. Good night.